Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Today we will be trying to fix this broken GeForce 7300 GT which was being thrown away. So as from the intro, this is an Nvidia GeForce 7300 GT which I managed to get my hands on after it was thrown out in a house clearance. It hadn't been left outside for very long and had not been damaged by the weather. So before we get into this whole video on testing this card, let's go into the specifications of it. So the 7300 GT was released back in May of 2006 for under $100. It boasts a core clock of 350 MHz, a memory clock of 325 MHz. So a bit of a joke for today's standards, but back then these were great specs for a budget card. And this card has been called the GT710 and GT1030 of its time. The card has a TDP of 24 watts and has 8 pixel shaders and 4 vertex shaders. The card also came in 3 memory configurations of 128MB, 256MB and 512MB, with ours being the latter. The VRAM on these cards though is only DDR2, so it's fairly slow by today's standards again. However, there was a GDDR3 version of this card, but these seem to be very rare nowadays. This card could play many games of its time, as well as it basically is a slightly cut down version of the 7600 GT. The card is also limited to DirectX 9 API, so we will struggle to play any fairly modern titles. I have tried to find out the vendor of this card, but after counting the searches I could not find a single image of a card like this one. So if any of you know what vendor this card is from, let me know in the comments. So for the card of its age, it's better to go with Windows 7, as Windows 7 has the best compatibility in terms of drivers for older cards like this. Also, another thing to note is that most games we'll be playing on this card will work with Windows 7 anyway. However, this is where we ran into a problem. Apart from the card's fan sounding very loud like this, the card started displaying various artifacts while I was trying to install Windows 7. The artifacts didn't appear in the BIOS screen or the starting Windows screen, so I thought this could be a driver issue with the card. So I decided to swap it out for my trusty 9600 GT, and with that card I managed to install and set up Windows 7 just fine. But this wasn't the end of my issues, as when we swapped back to the 7300 GT, no display showed at all, no matter what I tried. I tried everything in my power to get this card to work again, from using display driver uninstaller, also known as DDU. I also tried to use some compressed air on the card to try and clean any excess dust, and I even tried to remove the cooler to apply some new thermal paste, but the springs on the cooler were very rusty and wouldn't come off. So unfortunately it seems this card was most likely thrown out because it was on its last legs and it had finally given up, which is a real shame. So to conclude, is the GeForce 7300 worth it? Well, we can't really answer that question without having a working card, but based on the age of the card, its specs, and only having the DirectX 9 API, it's not really worth it, even at a cheap price, or in my case for free. However, it is good for old games that came out before 2006, but my recommendation is, if you want to play games that old, is to get an 8000 or 9000 series card, as these cards are more reliable, which are pretty good gaming in performance over the 7000 series cards. So before I cap off this video, I would like to thank Budget Builds Official for letting me know about the GPU June event and sending me the details, And I would also like to thank Pixelpipes for creating and setting up the GPU June event. Both of their links are in the description, as well as the GPU June playlist, which has many other creators' videos. Leave a like if you haven't liked this video already, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so, and I'll see you in the next